Hello. If we can get the candidates up here, we might be able to have a debate. Here they come. It'll be interesting to see which one of the Republicans sits on the far left. Just getting started. Okay. While they're getting set up, let's run you through what's happening tonight. Good evening. Welcome to the chambers of the Fulton Common Council. It also doubles as a courtroom, but no one's on trial tonight. We are here to hold a debate among the three candidates who are running for the Republican nomination to run for mayor of Fulton this fall. There is a Democratic candidate. He does not have a primary opponent, and he opted not to be with us tonight. We'll introduce the candidates in a moment, but first, just a little bit of housekeeping. One, you had an opportunity to put questions on cards. Your opportunity is not over. There are plenty of cards here. If a question occurs to you, please pick it up, put a question on it, and run it up. We'll be glad to try to get it into the debate. There's no guarantee that we'll get to your card, but we will try. Please, if you fill out questions during the debate, please stay away from personal types of questions. We want to talk here about policy and issues. If you really want to ask that personal question, go ahead and ask it yourself afterwards. Now, a couple of other housekeeping items. We want to make sure that everybody has their cell phones turned off. Please and thank you. Please take a moment and do that. This pause here. We also want to mention that you should be watching the papers because we will be publishing when this debate will be airing on cable access. Our good friend Terry Reynolds is videotaping it tonight, and it will be on Time Warner at some point. The candidates have arranged for the taping themselves. They'll work out the schedule. When they know, they'll let us know. When we know, we'll tell you. All right, let's begin. First, I'd like to introduce the panel of journalists with us. They are not necessarily going to ask questions. They're kind of here for coverage, but they are free to if they like. And they've helped filter through the questions tonight. So, Roy Hodge from the Fulton Patriot, Nicole Riom. Roy, I stepped on your applause, man. Sorry. He employs my child. I think my kid just got a pay cut. Nicole Riom from Fulton Daily News. And deliberately hiding in the far back, Andy Henderson from the Valley News. But you didn't come to see them, you came to see them. Let's introduce them one at a time. On the far right, a newcomer to politics, making his first run for elective office, Mark Aldash. In the center, he's been on the Common Council before, making a run for mayor now, Mark Sherman. And on the far left, the current city administrator, the current executive assistant to the mayor. He's been on the Common Council. He's even been mayor. Why he wants it again is his mystery. Ron Woodward. We don't have a time limit here. We'll probably go till we run out of air or questions or both. So if you want to ask a question during the proceedings, please pick up a card, write it down. We'll get it in if we can. But we're aiming for about an hour. That won't hold. You get home about third, fourth inning of the Yankee game, I think, if you're lucky. So these guys can shake off the jitters and the microphone in the face blues. We're going to ask them a softball question to get started. We'll get into the harder questions later. But let's get them started. We'll start with Mark Aldash. Mark, tell us why you want to be mayor and what is the first thing that you really intend to do.
The reason why I'm running for office is because of the high taxes, the high cost of living here. Um, the cost of living is very high. You look all over the community, there's homes for sale, sitting on the market for a long time. Fulton has a lot of, how to put this, a lot of strengths that aren't being utilized. And I believe that, a lot of things have been overlooked and mismanaged over years, not any one specific administration, just things have been overlooked. The high cost of living, I wanted to make the city more affordable. I also believe that Fulton has taken a hit economically several times, which everybody knows. And, the city hasn't adjusted its spending habits to reflect the economic changes that the city has undergone. And I've put together a comprehensive plan, multitude of ideas that go hand in hand together to not only make Fulton more affordable, but to help put Fulton back into a better position economically, to bring jobs here. One of my larger ideas is bringing hydroelectric power and wind power here to the city. We have a river. Why not use it? Everybody's here is on National Grid, the third highest electric company in the United States. Two other highest are in California. Why not have municipal power and cut everybody's electric bill in half? I mean, we have natural resources here that are being overlooked. That's one of my larger ideas. And I think that alone will it'll lower the cost of living in itself, but it also is kind of a bone to businesses looking to come to New York State or move into a different community, like in Solvay, where they have their own municipal power. Businesses want to come there, and that's one of my larger ideas, as well as cutting the fat and streamlining. There's a whole multitude of businesses.
And we'll be getting into those ideas as the night goes on. Mark Sherman, what about you? Why do you want to be mayor, and what do you plan to do?
Basically, I'm looking at this year's election as not a personal issue. It's more of a business decision on the part of the voters. It's not about Republicans or Democrats or conservatives. It's really about Fultonians. So I'd like to see the city move forward. I grew up here. I know what the city was. I grew up in the 60s here. I remember the Dizzy Block. I do remember, I went to the Quirk Theater. The last movie I saw there was The Monster Mash as a kid. So, I went to school at Phillips Street School here. I used to take my lunch money in 5th grade, and I'd go down to Ciron's, buy a few packs of baseball cards. 6th grade, they were 10 cents a pack. 6th grade, I went down there, they raised the price by 5 cents. That's a 150% increase, and boy, did I complain about that. So it really, I think that as far as Fulton goes, I know what it was. I'm pretty nostalgic about Fulton. I'd like to see that come back. I think that within our current budget, we got a $14 million budget. I'd like to see what we can do within that budget to start rebuilding phase in the city. One of the comments that's come back to me is that I'm going to bulldoze in the city. Well, yeah, I think bulldozers are needed here for development and progress, if that's what it's called. And we do need that. We've got property values on decline. We've got assessments dropping. We have other assessments increasing. There's kind of an inequality across the city, and we need to balance that out citywide. And to do that, we do need development. We cannot lay stagnant anymore. We have to develop this community again. I do have the qualifications to be mayor. I've got the education. I have 2 degrees, one in architecture, one in business. I graduated magna cum laude, high honors. Okay, I crammed 2.5 years into 16 months to graduate on a fast track in my business degree. I have also experience in construction, mechanical engineering, and also as far as government, I served on the council for 4 years. I have a very strong understanding of economics. I think it's going to be critical to the advancement of this community. Knowing when to make the right business decision, knowing what contracts to negotiate, knowing when to deal with other communities, when to deal with the county, and when to deal with the state. I believe that the community will benefit from my planning abilities. That goes along with my architectural and business background. I have vision and imagination, and I've got numerous goals and plans for the city, and I will lay them out both short-term and long-term tonight as we go along. And like I said, I do plan on bulldozers in development. Anyway, we will, I look forward to the debate tonight and discuss our topics as we go. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. And now, Ron Woodward, you have been mayor. God help you. Why do you want to do it again?
Well, to begin with, I was born in Fulton Hospital, the old one, the Albert Lindsay Lee Memorial Hospital. Been here all my life, raised my children here, have 7 grandchildren now, 1 great-grandson. And I love the city of Fulton. I spent most of my adult life in some kind of service to Fulton. 12 years as an elected official as Fulton 6th Ward Alderman and 2 years as its mayor. But I also was a chairman of the board of directors at Fulton Housing Authority for 5 years. I was scoutmaster in the 6th Ward for 9 years. I served on the board of directors for the American Cancer Society, and also on the board of directors of the Salvation Army. I did that because I love the people of Fulton. I got close to them. I knew all the ones that were wealthy and all the ones that weren't so wealthy. I think that the last 3.5 years with Mayor Hayden, the mayor and I worked at Nestle's. We've known each other for years and years. I think the city, even though the northeast parts of it are economically depressed, we've had some financial issues. I think if you look over the last 3.5 years, I think we've done pretty good. I was the last man out of Nestle's in 2003. The only other person there was the plant manager. When Nestle's left, we lost $22 million a year in payroll in this town, plus all the services that Nestle supported. We lost Sunoco Packaging, and their payroll was approaching $10 million. And now they're starting to come back. And later we lost Fulton Cogen. We lost the Golden Corral, and we lost the Lock Restaurant. But in those 3.5 years, we've managed to hold the line and not raise taxes. When I started on the Common Council in 1982, we had almost 40 people in the DPW. Today we got 24, and we haven't cut your services. And we did that by thinking out of the box. We merged the sanitation department and the water department with the DPW because the people in those departments had like skills. So we could continue to do what we were doing with less people. So when you look at it, we haven't done bad. At the end of 2003, I was on the budget committee and I was Common Council president. I engineered a layoff for a department head and 3 guys from sanitation because I realized that we were $40,000 in the red going into 2004. And it was not acceptable to raise that sewer rate because the city had just gotten hit with a large water rate. I knew that the public couldn't stand it. Today, without raising any rates, just through our management, we're $500,000 to the black. That's pretty good. We sat down and looked at that budget and said, should we give it back, or should we start upgrading our system so we don't have to go out and bond? We put brand new roofs on all 12 major pump stations, and next year we are looking at replacing a force main on the west side of the river, and I think anybody that lives along First Street that throughout the year that suffers with the breaks and the lawns over there where the raw sewers realize it has to be replaced. The conservative estimate of that cost is $2.5 million. We have contacted and are hiring a grant writer, and Danny O'Brien's in the audience, and I haven't talked to him about it yet. We are meeting with him Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock. He has agreed to write that grant, and there is one out there for about $500. And we're only going to focus on that grant right now because it's part of our infrastructure. This administration has done more infrastructure improvement, and I can tell you, because I've been on the council since 1982, than any one administration I have ever seen. We tried to hold the cost down. We had to borrow money for a water tower. The alternative was no fire protection on the east side and probably not run the businesses. So we did it. No blame to anybody that didn't, but I can tell you the one that was there and is still there was there 90 years, and for the next 75 years, no other administration is going to have to worry about it. But when you go to sleep at night, you know you're going to have water to fight a fire, and you know that if another major industry comes in here, you're going to be able to support them. We put over 7,000 feet of sidewalk in every year now. We spend about $50,000 a year on that. I was here through many administrations, including my own, when we spent $50,000 contracted out, and we were lucky if we got 3 blocks. And those guys, when you talk about the merger, they're also the guys that handle all the pump stations, the sanitary sewer lines when they break. They're a crew of 4. I've heard some criticism because we work them Saturday on sidewalks, but you know what? Every sidewalk we put in, half of them are 100 years old. It's an investment in our future in our neighborhoods. It cuts down on our liability claims, and I'm very proud of them. You can't be in here and not get criticized. And the only people that get criticized are people that make decisions. And if everyone we made was perfect, but it'd be a good world. But if you're going to be afraid of criticism and not make decisions, then the city dies.
All right, Ron, thanks so much. We'll get into questions now. First, I would ask you, please, because it's kind of a partisan event, why don't we save the applause for the end if we can, okay? So we don't, let these guys talk on straight up, and we can applaud heartily at the end. How's that? All right, first question. And we'll just start opening it up here. Everybody who wants to run for office wants to do something, one specific thing that really is gnawing at them or they're anxious to do. On day one, what is that thing that you're going to attack? What is the number one thing on your list, the first thing you do in office? Mark Sherman?
Actually, there's not a number one thing. There's several things that have to be done right away. Obviously, we've got contracts that are going to be up for negotiation. That's going to be critical next year. Obviously, it's not going to be handled in the first day, but it is one of those things that has to be taken a look at. One of the things I see is very critical to this community, and the public really doesn't know that much about it, is the situation with our sales tax. The sales tax agreement with the county is going to cost this city millions of dollars individually each year. On this year alone, we're probably, I'm calculating at a 2% inflation. There was no inflation taken into consideration. When you're talking about economics, you have inflation at 2% outside the city. That's on a global basis. It's roughly about 2% right now. The city typically expands at about 3.5%, so there's a difference there. What's going to happen is within 20 years, right now, to this year, our budget, sales tax makes up about 43% of our budget. The property taxes make up about 26% of that budget. There's going to be an equilibrium point where sales tax and property tax meet. That's in the year 2018. 34% of the budget will be made up from property tax, 34% will be made up from sales tax. As you see, sales tax will become a much smaller portion of our budget. Property taxes are going to have to continue to increase to cover the expenses to run this community. Okay, this was all done in lieu of the Walmart expansion out in Granby. But you cannot look at Walmart and economics as a zero sum. It does not mean that because there is business in Granby that we're going to go out of business in Fulton. It might hurt Kmart. Kmart's hurting themselves. It is not Walmart that is hurting Kmart. Okay? Kmart is collapsing under their own weight. I try to shop there myself. I go in there, I get frustrated as anybody in this room does trying to find product or trying to find somebody to help me. I went and bought a fishing license for the first time in my life this year. I waited a half an hour at their counter, at the sports counter, while the guy working there looked at me and kept walking away. Okay? Finally, my wife went and chased somebody down while I kept my place in line and got some. But my point is, this sales tax thing is going to be critical. In 15 years, Property taxes are going to make up 41.5% of our budget, sales tax about 28%. As you see, the numbers are going to continually get worse. Property taxes in 20 years at 45% of the budget, sales tax will make up about 24%. Within 30 years, you're looking at over 50% of our budget will be covered from property taxes. Sales tax continuing to reduce as a percentage of our budget at just under 18%, 17.8%. Sales tax is the fairest tax. Everybody pays sales tax. I don't care if you're on welfare. I don't care who you are. You're paying sales tax. Not everybody's paying property taxes. People in this city, they know who's paying property taxes. They're going to get hit. Anybody in this city, in this room, sitting here right now, you own property, the target is on you. It was a very bad deal with the county. The county came in here, saw our guys, I'm talking about our city leadership, in a panic. And the way I look at it, the county took advantage of us. Okay? It really does concern me. That is my number one priority for this city.
Thanks, Mark. Ron Woodward, job one, day one. What?
Okay. I'd like to respond to that if I could.
Why don't we hold that? I'll
Okay.
keep it. We'll come back to it as soon as you get done.
Well, there's some reorganizing I'd like to do, and I'd like to focus on the neighborhoods. And when we talk about property tax, believe me, this year, when the assessment situation arose as it did, never in the years I've been here had I seen assessments hit the way they were hit. And in contrary to what some people think, the mayor and I had nothing to do with it, other than the fact that we had to try to explain it. And ashamedly enough, I'd say we had to do a lot more learning on that. My focus is going to be on growing the value of the city. And Mark is right. The property tax does not even pay the whole bill for fire and police, public safety. Public safety is about $6 million. We take in about $4.5 million in property tax. One of the reasons for that is about 50% of the city is tax exempt, okay? So what do? You have to try to get everything in the tax rolls you can get, but in looking at the assessments in the city of Fulton, one thing that I noticed, and I had a conversation with Joe Firmino today, we did the actual numbers on rental units in the city, these places we call businesses. There's 48% of the city is rental. When you look at the assessments on the rental properties and the ones that we have problems with, there's a 5-family house, just for an example, on Rochester Street. It's owned by an out-of-town landlord. We had a problem with it this week. We actually went in and shut an apartment down. We closed it down. One apartment out of the 5. That apartment takes in that house takes in $25,000 a year and pays $2,500 in taxes. Our share of the taxes don't even cover the police calls there. The place is assessed for $50,000. We would be better off to invoke eminent domain and make it a park. We'd save money. And not only that, the other houses in that neighborhood that are single family, the values will go up. But we started in with the CDA and an outfit called the FCRC. And what we have done and are going to continue to do is we're taking these 2- and 3-family homes, and when we can turn them back in to single-family homes and sell them to first-time home buyers, that assessment goes from $40,000 to about $70,000 or $75,000. It is possible for us to almost increase the value of our city by 40%, and if we tie it into home ownership, rather than transient living, the quality of life in our city is going to be a lot better, and the people that own homes, they're going to be worth a lot more. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be done without criticism. But I can tell you what I seen here in 1982, the problems with these areas, we're having them today. We can go out in code enforcement and hire 20 more people to manage somebody else's property that doesn't live here. And we're probably going to have to do some of that till we start getting a hold of all of them. But that's going to be my main focus because our people aren't enjoying their neighborhoods. Their quality of life is not what it used to be. It puts a burden on the people that don't have them in their neighborhoods. It's all done through zoning, all done through what we have happen over a 30-year period in this town.
Thanks. Mark Aldash, day one, job one.
I'm going to start with taxes. Starting right in the mayor's office, making cuts. I believe that the mayor's office doesn't need an executive assistant to the mayor. Furthermore, I believe the mayor's position should be a full-time rather than part-time. You don't see Coca-Cola, Pepsi, or any other multi-million-dollar corporation run by a part-time CEO. Furthermore, as an example with cuts, it's nothing against Ron, but I believe if you have a full-time mayor, there's no need for an executive assistant to the mayor. Further, a secretary to the mayor, in my opinion, is not needed. You have two city clerks in other communities, such as Oneida, where I'm from. The assistant city clerk answers the phone for the mayor, or does any paperwork that he can't get to. I can answer my own phone. This deal with the city, 50% of the city pays 100% of the taxes. I want people to pay their taxes, their fair share. I'm not going to target landlords. Yeah, I'll target slum properties. That's codes. There's issues with that, quality of life. That goes with zoning. My house is assessed at $115,000. The former homeowner is here right now. I'm paying over $6,000 a year in taxes. I can go down to Myrtle Beach in South Carolina, buy a home that's $450,000 on the ocean, and I can pay $4,000 a year in taxes. And I can get all the same services that you get here. So what's the problem? The problem is fat in the budget. Another thing to touch on what they talked about with the tax deal, personally, the tax deal, I believe it's going to breed stagnation. You're getting a set amount. It's going to lead to stagnation. What incentive is there for the city to grow with this tax deal that the city's entered into? The city's sitting on a edge of a knife right now. The general fund balance is pretty low. I don't have the exact number with me right now, but all it takes is one major fire, say at Nestle's or some sort of catastrophe, and the city's going to be in the red. It's going to be in big trouble. So I'm going to be looking at all areas. I'm going to be looking at the city charter. I think the mayor's position should be a full-time position. Like I said, Coca-Cola, all these companies, multi-million-dollar corporations, they don't have part-time CEOs. They don't come in, part-time. It's a full-time position, and that needs to change. And what you see is what you get. You get what you pay for. Whether it be alderman, mayor, what have you, we're the management of the city. And, I'm going to start, if you're going to start somewhere, start right where you're working, right in the office.
All right, so we've asked exactly 2 questions and sucked down half of the debate. All right. We're doing just fine here. All right, well, it seems that everybody at the panel wants to talk about the sales tax deal, and Ron, they say it's a bad deal. Defend.
I guess any deal you make when you're sitting here, the mayor or I, is a bad deal if you're from the outside. I can see pros and cons of it, and believe me, we weighed it very dearly. But I can tell you this. I remember when the city of Fulton annexed the mall where Kmart is. Their sales tax were down. They were getting hit. In the first full year that mall was in there, the city realized almost $1 million more in taxes. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know what happens when a super Walmart comes into an area, especially an area that's not located within the corporate limits of a city. They're going to bring Lowe's with them. They're going to bring Target. We already know that there's going to be another Dunkin' Donuts out there because we've been involved in negotiations. And we could conceivably be hit with $1 million loss in our sales tax. That would absolutely devastate the city of Fulton. We're taking in an agreement with the county, a guaranteed $6,100,000 a year. And if we should still go after or try to get retail, that's a smart thing for us to do, because when the county prospers, and they'll prosper from Walmart, they'll pick up what we may lose, and they will share with us their excess the same way they do the town. So there is an incentive for us to do that.
Is Mark Sherman's analysis correct that over time, if absent growth in sales tax, substantial growth in sales tax, that more and more of a city budget is going to be picked up through property taxes?
The more budget is going to be picked up through property taxes. That's why we need to look at what we've got. Absent the fact that we haven't expanded our borders, our only hope is to take our housing stock, which we've mortgaged to a lot of absentee landlords, and improve it, make it better. I mean, I just told you, and you can do the numbers, there's 2,500 rental units in the city, and there's 4,500 living units, okay? Now, some of them are mill apartments in Meadowbrook and Towpath Towers. But whoever sits here has got to think outside the box. They got to look for ways to conserve revenue, and they've got to look for ways to combine forces with the city. When you look at streamlining the city, we used to have two commissioners. We had a DPW commissioner at the end of 2003 that made $73,000 plus benefits, okay? We had a water and sewer commissioner made, I think, around $64,000. When 2003 ended, both of them were gone. We had Danny O'Brien. We looked amongst our ranks to see who we thought was most qualified in water and sewer areas and new public works. Danny was a man. He was already on staff. We didn't hire a new person. We gave him an increase in salary. Danny come on and took both those positions for $58,000. And we didn't add 2 more retirements to the system, and we did not add 2 more health insurance to the system. We will not. It went along with the merger. And I can tell you right now, the city has long looked at having a public safety director. And that would eliminate some of the layers in one of those departments. It's a little premature. If I'm mayor, you can bet you I'll pursue that. That will be one of the first things. That's what we just got to get smarter.
Mark Sherman?
The problem with the sales tax deal is the county could take in anything over $34 million, we're going to get a bonus. That bonus amounts to $10,000 on an annual basis. $10,000 is a drop in the, we got people in the 3rd Ward that are paying more than that in property taxes right now, okay? So property taxes is going to take it on the chin, and it's not going to be pretty here. You're going to drive out more business because our taxes are going to increase to the point where we are going to lose more business on property taxes alone. It's going to reduce the actual volume of sales tax in itself to the county right there, because business, if I'm a businessman, why would I want to look at City of Fulton? I can look at what they're paying in property taxes. I'm going to say, I'm going to go to Granby or Valney. I don't care where I collect sales tax and where I pay it to. I don't really care about that. As a businessman, my concern is being profitable, and property taxes is going to take away from my profits. Sales tax does not impact my profit, but property tax will. This is very critical to this community. It's going to make it very expensive to live here and do business here. It is absolutely essential that that decision gets reversed, that City of Fulton is in charge of its own growth. If I'm the mayor, I want the ability to pursue individual business to come in here. I'd like to see a Christmas tree store in here, okay? That store does not compete with a Walmart, but it is a destination store. People will travel just to go to that store. The closest one we have right now is Mattydale. Before that, it was the County Mall in Albany, okay? It's a store like that. It's a base store. Other stores, specialty stores, would come in around it. It is just, there's so much you can do. Right now as mayor, what incentive is there for me, if I'm the mayor, to bring new business in to line the county with my sales tax? I'm going to see a little bit in property taxes, but I'm going to have to raise it to the point where I'm going to force that business back out of here again. It's just a very critical decision this was. And I'm sorry that you got to lay the blame on somebody, but it's just a matter. I don't feel that if Ron's elected, basically, that we're going to see a change in that agreement. I'm going to aggressively pursue that change. If I have to hire attorneys out of New York City, I'm going to aggressively pursue it. I'm going to get it reversed. we're not going to have it. It's got to go.
Mark Aldash, you live with the deal, a good deal, bad deal, what do you do?
Well, the deal's a double-edged sword. It's a gamble. Ron said, what if? What if with Walmart? What if with this? What if with that? It's a gamble. I was born and raised in Oneida. My family's originally from here, from Fulton. Dad went to school here. My grandmother worked at Nestle's. But the deal, I saw what Walmart did in Oneida, okay? Yeah, Lowe's came, and Oneida's grown. Oneida's benefiting from that. It didn't hurt the communities around it. Actually, it benefited other communities, the city of Sherrill, Vernon. Now, that's outside of this area. But here's the other thing you have to look at. Okay, yes, I can see where they're saying, okay, we may lose because of Kmart and because we may lose some mom and pops. And that's understandable. They're trying to cover all the bases. At the same time, it's creating stagnation because if it doesn't happen, like I said, and like Mark has said, it's going to create stagnation. We're going to take it on the chin. We're already paying high taxes. That's why I decided to run. I could have stayed home and complained and done nothing about it or just sold my house and moved. I decided to throw my hat in the ring to make a change, to bring about change, to help lower taxes. They talk about, taxes bringing in business. I put together my plan with the hydroelectric and wind power. It's not just lower taxes. You want to bring something else to the table. Okay, we have Lake Netawada. You can't even take your dog in it unless it touches the water, it dies with the blue algae. Why not dredge it? Dredge the lake. It was passed over years before, okay, because the city wanted the silt. Okay, the city got greedy. Why not dredge it? Open that springs up. That could be an economic boom to the city. Okay, that'll bring in people, tourists during the summer for swimming. Put a beach there, a public beach. Why not? Give the people something. That's incentive for the people. Incentive for the people also is, having your own municipal power, but it's incentive for businesses to come here, not just lower taxes. You have to look at the bigger picture too. I also talk about a transportation center. We have the rails right here. Why not put in a central transportation sub with a bus terminal, all in one location, Amtrak, Greyhound, some area taxis, the county transit. If you want to spur growth, you have to be willing to offer businesses something besides, lower taxes. Well, hey, I can save you 50% on your electric bill. Come with us. Come do business with Fulton. That's a big difference. And that deal, with the taxes, it ties the city's hand. But at the same time, I can understand where the city's coming from, trying to protect the people too. And it's like I said, it's a double-edged sword.
Mark Aldash, you brought up earlier, and this is in our pile of questions, I'll synthesize a couple of questions together, the issue of fat in city government. You've been talking about it a lot. Tonight you've identified 2 jobs that you'd cut. What services specifically and which positions specifically are on your target?
What I'm looking at, okay, is streamlining and consolidating. Okay, my opinion is, and it's not going to be a very popular one, the city doesn't need 2 fire stations. Okay, we have 2 good bridges. Okay, there's nothing wrong with those bridges. Why don't we put the fire station in one central location? Okay, you're paying for 2 buildings, same service. Okay, you're cutting overhead right there. Okay, that's an example. I gave you an example within the mayor's office itself. Starting right with myself. Cutting the fat. Listen, I'm from Oneida, okay, and you could say, well, you can go back to Oneida, okay, but that's not a very good response, okay, because, I'll save you the trouble, okay, but hey, I can be my own worst critic. But listen, the fact of the matter is I have family ties here. I have a cousin running for the legislature right now. I have a ton of family up here. My family roots are from this town. I chose to move to Fulton. Fulton didn't choose me. I chose to move here. I'm choosing to try and help the community. Okay? In Oneida, there's 24 firemen. Okay? We got 38 here. You know how many are in Cleveland, Ohio? New York Times. I was just telling Mr. Weston about it today. There was an article in the New York Times. Cleveland, Ohio has 54 firemen. The firemen are upset because the mayor told them to go out when you're not on calls, go out and help beautify the city. Go maybe plant some flowers or sweep some of the streets, pick up some trash. What's wrong with getting the most bang for your buck? I have nothing against fire or police. My father was both. My father was a sheriff's deputy with Madison County, and he was a city of firemen. Okay? Oneida is the same size, and land-wise, it's even bigger than Fulton. population-wise, it's the same size. Smaller police department, smaller fire department. You have the state police here. You have the sheriff's department right down the road. You can, I'm not saying get rid of everybody because you have to have public safety, and you can do it in a way without putting public safety at risk. Okay? That's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's things that can be done here to consolidate. And, you know, some people will say, well, public safety, and they'll use the public safety scare. No. Even in the city of Oneida with 24 firemen, there's people that go to those meetings every week, and there's a lot of them, you know, that say, hey, we need to cut this down some more, okay, because the need isn't there. But then again, when there's a fire, boy, everybody wants them there. So like I said, you have to find a happy medium. Ron used an example with the DPW cutting, 40-some-odd jobs down to 20-something. Okay, they found a happy medium. You know, and that's really what you need to do, starting with city government. Okay, you have to look at the charter, the codes too. I mean, you have contracts. Another example, you have policemen, okay, that are retiring after 20 years. Okay, they're 21, 22 years old, and this may be extremely unpopular with all the city employees, but I'm going to say it the way it is. Okay, my father at the sheriff's department, he worked 30 years. Why? Because he had to work 30 years at the sheriff's department to retire. Sheriff's department here, 30 years. You pay a policeman or fireman, you know, 21 years old, he starts out, okay? He works 20 years, he retires, he's 41, okay? Now he lives till he's 81. Now you're paying his retirement for 40 years, and he only worked 20. You know, what benefit is that for the people? Why not get, everybody else in the private sector has to work until they're 65, 63, 30 years at other jobs if they're lucky enough or fortunate enough to maybe have a union, to have a retirement, a pension, something to that effect. These guys are very fortunate, and I appreciate them because when I need them, they're there for me, okay? My house caught, or my fence caught on fire. The fire department was there, you know, because my neighbor was burning garbage. His garbage burnt up my fence out back, my brand new fence. When they're needed, they're there. But the fact is, you got to find a happy medium.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't care.
Would
I'm going to say it the way it is.
Mark, Ron, would either of you close the fire station?
Can I pass to Ron first?
Only if he catches the ball.
Boy, if that wasn't slick, nothing was.
He's going to close the fire station because I'm not, okay? I'll tell you something. That's been talked about for a lot of years. And I heard Mark all day say we got two good bridges. But I will tell you, if anybody caught the Post-Standard Sunday paper about a month ago, the Route 3 bridge, the Broadway bridge, is the worst rated bridge for maintenance in Sawyer County right now, okay? It's in the paper. We have the article. But apart from that, most of what you're talking about with public safety is contractual. The fire and police, under state law, have binding arbitration. That's something that the CSEA union doesn't have. When you sit down with fire and police, you have to negotiate in good faith. I can take you in my office and get you reports from NICOM, where if you don't negotiate in good faith and an arbitrator makes a decision over public safety, that arbitrator can direct you how much you're going to raise taxes to pay for it, okay? The West Side Fire Station, when you look at our men, we under contract, they have an 8-man roll. They have 8-man minimum staffing. There's 3 people across the river, and the rest are over here. Now, we could shut that station down over there and sell the building to private concern. But then we got to drag the equipment back here and build a garage to house it. You're not going to leave a $1 million piece of equipment outdoors. So you wouldn't gain anything. You still have the 8 firemen. Then you got no place to keep the equipment that's over there. And besides that, I think there's a feeling somewhere on the west side with a lot of the people, they feel a little safer having that there. There's schools over there. For what you'd save on it, you'd save pennies. Now, I will tell you, if you have the backbone to do it, and I don't mean that as derogatory to either one of the candidates, I'm talking about anybody, you sit down at the bargaining table with the fire and police, and you try to see how you can make the contracts better. The last contract that was negotiated with the fire and police, this administration, myself, the mayor, we negotiated the first time ever in this city, in the history, a lower starting rate for fire and police. And it's one of the things that helped us not raise taxes. That's how you do it, okay? You can negotiate the hours they work. But it has to be negotiated. We hired the law firm of Romer and Whalens, who are specialists in this type of law, civil service law, and contracts with fire and police, and they said, you can't arbitrarily schedule. They've worked these shifts for years and years and years, and you've got to go to the bargaining table, and you've got to do it in good faith, and it's probably going to cost you something. Firemen work 48 hours on and 24 hours the next week, but they're here for the 48 and 24. I think anybody knows that many, many years ago when that happened, that's because you had to ride a horse in from the country to get to the fire, and by the time you got there, it was too late. So it's outdated.
So what do you do about that?
Well, then we try to sit down at the bargaining table and say, well, okay, you can have the 48 hours, let's negotiate 4 12-hour days. That won't be popular because most of them have other jobs or businesses, and I understand that. I'm sympathetic to that. But when one of them is out, you cover 48 hours overtime. If they work 12 hours, you cover 12 hours overtime. There's a big difference. A big difference.
Mark,
And by the way,
Mark, how about you?
I completely agree with that because I have not campaigned on closing down any fire departments and or laying off any firemen. What I have been campaigning on is I would like to see administrative changes within the fire department, number one. Number two, I want to move all of them out of the east or west side into the east side. Number three, the west side is an asset. I want to use that asset, and I want to start a volunteer crew there. I want a mix. I want paid fire department here at City Hall. I want volunteers on the west side. And guess what? We're going to have, you're laughing out there, but we're going to have a race to the fire. We're going to see who's going to get there first. And I'll tell you what, I've talked to other volunteer departments, and they hustle, okay? Nothing against the paid firemen because they're going to do their job. I know that. And I know that they're not going to stab the city taxpayer in the back. They've got to work with us. If they don't work with us, they're part of the problem. I will expect them, as a mayor, to work with us on the contracts, okay? Again, it isn't, in fact, I was in Oneida. My job takes me all over New York State. I was in Oneida a couple weeks ago, and lo and behold, the guy I went to, what I do is I template countertops for silestone and granite and things like that, and it's all high-end stuff. And the guy's house that I was at, they didn't have the kitchen done, so I couldn't do it. So I stayed there and shot the crap with him for a few minutes. Come to find out, the guy is a retired Oneida fireman. And he knows quite a bit about the city of Fulton here as well. I guess he's got relatives here, and I think he's got friends out of the department. And I was discussing some of my ideas with him, and he said, you know, they're going to resist that. But in all honesty, he felt that in the long term, it would be something much more acceptable. I like the idea of going to the 14-12 shift rather than doing the, you know, a 24, 48-hour deal. I just don't. Like Ron said, I completely agree with that because when you got to hire somebody, bring somebody in, or not hire somebody, bring somebody in because somebody called in sick, you're paying a lot of overtime to that guy. It's too expensive. We can't do that anymore. This city has got to change it on the budget. But that's pretty much it. Again, I'm not looking at cutting these jobs. That is absolutely false. Thank you.
All right, let's take another topic. We've talked a lot about Walmart being built out in Granby and what could happen up Route 3. We've talked about, Ron, I think you went through the litany of the things that we've lost. Mm-hmm. Given the assets that we have, given the money we have, the people we have, what do we do to build in this city? What do you do with this city? If you had it in your hands, how would you mold it to improve the business climate in this area? And whoever wants to jump can jump.
What's it? Run that again.
What would you do? What are you going to do to improve business in this community? What are you going to do to bring retail, to bring industry, to bring any vitality within the city limits?
That's number one is your property taxes. That has got something, and that's right here. It's the budget again. It all falls back on that. We've got a tax rate in the city. Well, it's 55%, includes city and school and county. but what's it, the city tax rate's what, 14, 15?
$15.
$15 a thousand. And, I mean, it's something that we've got to, we've got to curtail that, because businessmen aren't stupid. They're in business because they're pretty intelligent. They're not going to locate here when they know that they can locate someplace else and pay a much lower tax rate. Okay? Again, they don't care where they're paying sales tax, but they do care where they're paying property tax, because it comes right out of their profit.
You guys mentioned the Dizzy Block and the good old days when you could go down to Foster's and get something and go from store to store on a Saturday night and go around the block. How do we get back to that? Do we ever get back to that? Is that even realistic?
Yeah, it's realistic. You hire somebody or elect somebody different. My opinion is that both gentlemen here, they both have had their chance to change the city. They both have had the opportunity to maybe utilize the river with, I know they have the river walk they're trying to boost up, but why not bring hydroelectric power here or attain, or even if using wind power, because there's prevailing winds. Okay, yeah, it's great, lower taxes, but now offer them a second bone of the lower electrical supply. Okay, you have Lake Neatawada, or Neatawada, however you pronounce it. That's great. You go down there, a nice, beautiful lake. You go walking along the shore, and then all of a sudden you see a nice big yellow sign saying, "Don't touch the water."
Okay, but do you want condos on that water?
Do I want what?
Do you want condos around the lake?
No, I think a public access beach. Kind of like a state park, something to that effect. Clean out the lake. Okay, the lake needs to be cleaned out, dredged out. It's not only going to be a recreational boost for the city, but it's going to be an economic tool. Same as the river, Oswego River or Salmon River is for the fishing. Okay, Oneida Lake, the people in Sylvan Beach, they got smart. Okay, they started bringing in the bass fishermen, the Bass Pro fishermen. There's a lot you can do besides the taxes. And going back to when we were talking about, Ron talked about the contracts. Contracts can be changed. That's what negotiations are for. And the other thing is, contracts are better for who? For the employees, or are we in office for the employees, or are we in office for the people, to serve the people? And that's what you really have to look at. Are they willing, like Mark, well, I'll defer to Ron. Well, because I don't know if I want to answer that, but nothing against Ron, but in the same sense, I don't have any ties to anybody. I don't owe anybody any favors. It's not, well, I grew up with Joe Schmo. He's working. I can't do that to him because he's a good guy. Well, you know what? Sometimes you have to look at the business aspect of things. When we talk business, okay, this is a business. It's a multi-million-dollar corporation, and that's what the city fundamentally is. It's a multi-million tax-paid, multi-million-dollar corporation that needs to be run like a business.
All right, but the question is how, do we ever get, gentlemen, a retail section back in downtown? And what is downtown? Is it on this side of the river, that side of the river? Do we get a downtown? And what's in it?
Can I answer that? Okay. You're never going to get downtown back what it was when you had the Dizzy Block. A lot of criticism's been given out over the years to the administrations that tore the Dizzy Block down and tore the downtown down. As part of urban renewal, it was something that swept the whole country. And once it's gone, it's gone. Okay? You're never going to get it back. You're going to get stuff down there. You're going to see some retail, and you're going to see a lot more service. Okay? But if we want to bring business here, we have to change our demographics. We've talked, the mayor has talked. We tried to get people in Ponderosa. We tried to get new businesses like Friendly's, and they look at our demographics. Our demographics are tied to a lot of our housing stock. Our housing stocks allow us to, frankly, when we talk to those businesses, say the people that live in your community can't afford our businesses. Why are they here? They're here because of the housing stock we got, okay? And so I guess if we want to bring them here, we've got to give them a reason to come here. And we've got to give a reason, if we change the housing stock, for young families and new families that want to come to Fulton. We realize that the river has been underutilized. We have got a $453,000 grant that's going to go a long way on that river. We have an adopted comprehensive plan, and we're working on zoning right now, and we have people from each ward of the city that's working on that comprehensive plan. We're working with Oswego County Planning with the first of a $50,000 Brownfield Opportunity Area grant for that river trail that will stretch from Indian Point Landing right to the bridge. It'll be from 481 right to First Street where the river is. My plan is, and right now we have a professional engineering corporation that's doing that whole design, is take 25% of that whole block area on the riverside and have something like a regional market similar to Syracuse. Take the 75% on the 481 side and develop commercially, okay? So, we already have the professionals designing it. We've got $500,000 to start it. The anchor to the boardwalk is already there. The only reason we haven't worked on it this summer is because the state says in order for us to provide our in-kind services that count towards our share of the grant, the documents have to be signed and the design has to be in. It's the only reason we're not going full board on there. That will bring people here. That will make people want to live in this community. They're not going to want to live here when they walk the streets at night and there's somebody beating each other up on a lawn, and your only option is to call the guy in Liverpool who owns a house and says, well, that's what we pay police for. You got to change it.
Are we really a services community then? Yeah, I mean, your argument is that the days of retail, the Dizzy Block is gone. Mark Sherman, are we really, and what about our tourism assets? You talk about the river, but...
This is one of the areas where
we're doing something.
I'm definitely agreeing with Ron in some of the things he's saying, but I disagree. We disagreed heartily when I was on the council before on how to achieve the demographic change in the city. One of the things that I wanted to do was tie the water usage to the user, okay? And what that does, and I hear groaning from the water department over there, because they were kind of against it, because it kind of puts more effort into that department. But what I'd like to see is all the water usage tied to the user. It's going to cost taxpayers a little bit of money to get rid of this problem, but it's something that needs to be done. What's happening is the people that are living in this community that business wants to turn their back on are the same people we have to send the police department after, same people we have to send the code enforcement after, same people we have to send all kinds of ambulance. Every community service that we provide is really focusing on this group of people. What I'm talking about, the water use, the water department, the water billing on, and the use department as far as usage of the water bill. Here's what it is. These people are paid money. They are given money by social services to pay their bills. That is buy groceries, pay their rent, pay their water bill, pay their heat and electric. A lot of times what they do, though, is they buy everything else, but they don't pay their water. So in my opinion, it's a technicality to get them out of the community. They've got two choices. When they move from apartment A to apartment B, you have two choices. Pay your water bill or leave town. And for 5 cents a taxpayer, I think it's well worth it to get them out of here. And it sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, I think it's a step that the city can take to move forward and try to handle some of the social problems here in the city. Otherwise, how are you going to change the demographics of the city? You got to use code enforcement. You got to use everything. It's not just the water bill. That's just one item on a handful of things that need to be done. Code enforcement is going to be very critical as well. There's a lot of code violations. I don't think the code office is doing their job with regards to code enforcement. Drive around town. Just drive around. There are obvious code infractions in the city. Why haven't these people been cited? Like I said in my campaign articles before, code enforcement is not a desk job. It should be 4 hours on the road, 4 hours in the office doing your paperwork, and then the same thing again the next day.
Okay, we're approaching 8 o'clock. I think we're going to go overtime. No, we're not letting you out yet. You know why? Because this here is a stack of your questions, and we've barely scratched them. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is to be real short.
Okay.
You've probably blown through a lot of words. You can probably shorten up here. So we're going to try and go through as many of these as we can, as fast as we can, all right? So let's call this the lightning round of the game show. Here we go. What's your position on bonding, briefly?
I'm against it.
For everything?
Look,
Can a city government run on a cash basis?
well, you have to look at it like this. Bonding is a necessity to some point, but there's been a lot of bonding, excessive bonding, and the general fund balance is low. Why not streamline City Hall, build up the general fund balance, okay, so that way you have cash on hand. If you need something fixed, go ahead, you have the money. If something needs to be bonded, now understandable, like when they worked on the water tower, okay, that's a lot of money. There's things like that, grants, whatever. Okay, but instead of bonding, I believe that the department heads, maybe the city pay for this, but take classes, go to classes for grant writing, okay, to write their own grants. If a department needs something, use all your options. There's federal and state monies available, okay, rather than just bonding it out.
All right,
because
Mark
bonding
Sherman.
is
Mark Sherman.
credit.
I'm going for brevity here.
I'm going to keep it short here. Bonding should be used for infrastructure improvements, capital improvements, that's it. Everything else should come right out of the fund budget, right out of the budget, should be budgeted in. If we got to raise taxes to cover those items that we need, say we need a plow tomorrow, we got to pay for it, we're going to charge the taxpayer.
You got to have cash in pocket to buy a snowplow.
Absolutely.
So if you don't have the cash in pocket, snowplow breaks down during that 100-inch snowstorm.
We'll do what we have to do.
Mhm.
We'll do what we have to do.
Okay, all right. Ron?
Bonding is a big issue, and I can tell you, you're not going to run a municipality or any $14 million corporation without hitting bonding. Yes, we should look at the $25,000 items, the ones that are going to last 5 or 6 years, and try to budget for them. One thing I'd like to clear up on our fund balance, just to make it clear, and it's factual. When we come in here in 2004, our fund balance was $1,600,000, and now it's $2,200,000. So,
How much is left after the budget?
pardon me?
What's the balance after the budget?
It will be close to that, right there. We used $300,000 out of that to fund the budget. But before the end of the year is out, it will be a lot higher,
right.
Simply for something.
What's your view, though, on bonding? What's the right balance?
I think for infrastructure, sidewalks we're buying for, but that's something that probably will last 50 years, you know what I'm saying? We budgeted for, or we bonded for a water tower because obviously we were in a critical situation we had to do something for. And a snowplow, it's going to run you $150,000 in Oshkosh. You're not going to budget for that.
What are your thoughts on Fulton's current codes, Mark Sherman?
Current codes?
Current codes.
In regards to what?
That's what it says here.
That's pretty vague. I mean, you got...
Okay.
There's a lot of codes.
I think we talked a lot about housing code. What is the, we went through a comprehensive plan process, if I'm not mistaken. Is it working?
We need code enforcement in this city. It's quite obvious. It's part of the problems why some assessments went down by a third. Okay? People are deliberately, whether it's deliberate or whether it's an income issue, let me tell you something. In 2004, I was unemployed. My house needed to be recited. Guess what? I cited it. It needed to be done. You can't just let those things go. I had no income. I didn't have unemployment, but I did it. Okay? And my house is only 17 years old. Okay? You just can't, it is not an excuse. If you can't afford to upkeep your house, you probably can't afford the house. It goes right back to property ownership. It's just not something that you've got to, code enforcement should be removed from politics. It should not be complaint driven. The aldermen shouldn't be filing complaints. The mayor shouldn't be filing complaints. Just have that department do their job. If they can't do the job, then maybe we got the wrong people in the department.
Mark Aldash?
Well, with codes, I put right in my comprehensive plan that, there's some outdated codes, outdated standards. Some are very vague. To hit Mark's point, I think, simply put, there needs to be more enforcement. As far as when they talk about diversity, I have no problem with anybody being poor. I have no problem with that. Okay? And codes doesn't either, and anybody else. Okay? people work, it doesn't matter if you make $8 an hour or whatever, but with the codes, yeah, you should take some pride in the property. That leads to the quality of life for the city, certain pride, aesthetic pride, but the problem is people are afraid to work on their house and clean up their yards and stuff like that. Why bother when the city's going to raise their taxes for making their house look nice? What incentive is there for homeowners, especially people on fixed or limited incomes, the elderly, the poor specifically, okay? The people who are struggling day to day to get by, okay? And what incentive is there, because they're going to raise their taxes if they go siding their house or painting? Yeah, that's maintenance. There should be some sort of incentive program for people to beautify their homes.
All right,
Something to that
Ron
effect.
Woodward?
Okay. We could talk for hours on code enforcement, and I'll be the first one to tell you that we fall short, okay? And I'll also tell you I'm a certified code enforcement officer myself. I've been in court with our city attorney prosecuting a lot of hard code cases. We have focused on some of the more difficult ones, some of the life-threatening ones. The quality of life issues in our neighborhoods are the majority of code complaints that we get are things that don't cost anybody any money. Putting the garbage out the wrong time of the week. And it all ties back to home ownership. You can live with a guy that can't afford to sell his house, but you can't live with a guy that don't know that it's not good to have garbage out 7 days a week, or couches on the lawn, things like that. We can hire 100 people to take care of that, but what we're doing is we're paying to manage somebody's property that probably don't live here.
Are the current codes adequate to deal with it?
They're falling short with the housing stock that we have in some of the neighborhoods. Yes.
Next question. Ron Woodward, you first. Where do you feel the Fulton Community Development Agency's efforts are best spent?
Well, I think that the focus that we've tried to do, and I think the focus we're going to see from now on, because I think within the next year or two we're going to have a new director, is the shift from probably 10 or 15 years of them putting money into investor-operated housing units is going to be to the affordable home ownership. We've taken several two-family houses and partnered with them. We've taken them on bad taxes. They put $40,000 to $50,000 in to change them back to single family. And we've done 11 of them in the 3 years, plus 4 brand new ones, and they've all sold. And every one of those ones we take that are 2 or 3 family, either tear them down, put a new one in, or rehab them into single, the assessment is doubled or tripled on them. Now we have somebody in there that can afford a mortgage that's working, and we don't have garbage all over. They're mowing their lawns. We don't have the police there all the time. It's not going to happen overnight. It took this city 30 years to get where it is there right now. And code enforcement's a big issue. We still need people to go out and hammer the people that are putting garbage out. But unless you want to be dealing with that same issue 30 years from now, you got to seriously consider eliminating what's causing it, and that's what's causing it.
Mark Aldash, what do you think? CDA administers the low-income housing program, the home rehabilitation programs. It also deals with economic development. What's the best use of their time?
I think that, home ownership is good. First-time home buyers programs, as far as the CDA goes, with the housing and stuff like that, it's a big issue, the quality of life here. So how do you get it better? Not even dealing directly with that approach is bringing jobs here. That's my view of that. If you got people working, you got people with jobs and money in hand, you're not going to have half the problems that you're having now with, the projects or, maybe some of these people. The other problem is the slumlords. I think, you look at that when we talk codes, I think there really needs to be a major crackdown. It's nothing wrong with not having money, but there's something wrong with, you know, not keeping things decent. You know, up to snuff at least, you know, to a bare minimum. And, you know, it's, my opinion of that is, look, you got to bring jobs here if you want to change anything, and the only way you're going to bring jobs, okay? Jobs, money, that's how you get better housing, that's how you change the demographics. You know, when you talk financial demographics, okay? You know, to be specific, you know, you need jobs here if you want to change anything.
Mark Sherman, CDA, what should they do more?
So I would like to see them continue to focus on their first-time home ownership programs. I think they're doing an excellent job. The rehabs of some of the buildings I've seen are tremendous, outstanding. I would give them an A+ on that. As far as, I did want to touch back on codes again. Like I said, I travel all over New York State now, from Buffalo to whatever, and then up to Messina. And I was up in Potsdam a week or so ago, and my truck broke down, and I had to go to the gas station to get some repair. And I was standing there talking to it was kind of like going to Brewers, you know. And the guy was telling me everything about Potsdam, a lot of negative stuff, but I was listening to the positive stuff. And what he said was the way they do their code enforcement in Potsdam is they give a homeowner 3 years to come up to par. And whatever happens in that 3 years, whether they come up to par or not, by the end of that third year, their assessment reflects a pristine property. So basically, they're going to be punished effectively. Their taxes are going to, so if say a house here is assessed at $30,000, and that's because it may be missing siding, it may have shingles loose on the roof, whatever, garbage around the yard, I don't care what it is. In 3 years, they've got 3 years to clean that up. And in the third, fourth year, their assessment's going to be $60,000. So their taxes will reflect an increase, regardless. And I think that's, you know, I think what we need to do is look at other communities and what they're doing right, and try to bring some of that back here. We don't have all the answers. The other thing, too, when we talk about landlords, where we're lacking in the codes issue right now is we need to clamp down on these LLCs. There's landlords out there, they're filing LLCs, and they're hiding themselves. They're hiding behind the LLC, and sometimes you can't track them down. And the only way to get to them sometimes, and Syracuse is seeing this, is to shut down their building. All of a sudden, somebody shows up. We have a face. We have a name. Now we know who you are, and now we're going to license you. We may have to have a licensing program here in Fulton for landlords, because it is going to be an issue that we got to get on top of, because it's going to run away from us if we don't, and we need to act on that. And that's going to be critical in our code. That's one of the areas we're missing.
Next, Fulton used to be industry rich. You can list the industries that used to be here. Nestle, Miller, Reynolds, Owens, Illinois, the box plant, many, many others. Do you believe that's possible again? Mark Sherman.
Is Governor Spitzer here?
I didn't see a steamroller parked outside, no.
Steamroller. Yeah, it really comes back to Albany. Albany has forced out so many jobs. My company, I worked for 14 years up in Syracuse. They were basically forced out of here on high taxes. They moved down to Georgia. Okay, we were heavily union, and our union went on strike for the first time in 104 years because they didn't want to have disciplinary action taken on people that missed 90 hours of unexcused time. That's what, over 2 weeks of unexcused time off. They don't want to be disciplined for that. So I think when you're looking at industry, we need to be, New York State has got to take the lead on that. We can only do so much here as a little city. Most of these corporations are bigger than Fulton. We're a $14 million corporation. Walmart can buy and sell us, okay? If Walmart didn't want Fulton to be here anymore, they could come in here and buy us all out and we'd be happy. So it's just not, you're not going to set the foundation for, as a mayor, for business. You can do it for property tax on small business scale, yes. I completely agree with that. And that's really, we do need to focus on property taxes to get that down.
I'm not for sale by Walmart, but if I were, I'd have to go by the pound.
I'd sell.
Thanks. Ron Woodward, you were the last guy out of Nestle, the new
Yes.
plant manager. Can we ever have a dominant plant, factory-centered industry in this community again.
Manufacturing in New York State and the Northeast is a thing of the past, and there's a lot of reasons for it. You can point to China. I think you're reading all the time the recalls we have over there, the cheap labor. But one thing that, and I see some Nestle people here today, that I found out, because I was part of their management during those times, when Nestle's looked, and you can look at other manufacturing outfits and mirror them to Nestle's, Nettleton shoes, here 100 years, they're gone. When they looked at combining their chocolate factories, consolidating them, they had some major capital investments to do that. When they looked at Fulton, they didn't have a problem with Fulton's help. They were a very talented workforce. They didn't have a problem with the maintenance cost per ton. We were the lowest one in all the chocolate makers in the country. One thing that drove them out, with all the state deals and everything that we got, we paid 8.5 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity, okay? That's with the power for jobs, you name it. Down in Burlington, where they were going, they were paying 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour with no deals. Our power bill when we shut down was $1 million a month. So they said, if we're going to spend $50 million or $100 million, where are we going to do it? And that's a problem all through, and it's still a problem. Power costs, and Mark Aldash talks about power costs, and I can tell you, the hydro thing looks good. The window of opportunity for Fulton or other communities to take over the hydro plants now is gone. We went through that. We had consultants. Now you got things like stranded costs and things like that. We just can't do it. Windmills, until Mark mentioned that to me, I hadn't thought about it, and I talked to some people in the industry, and to my surprise, and I guess it's maybe because I'm getting a little older and my mind's closing a little bit, that is something viable to look at. As far as I've researched on that, it's about $2.5 million right now to buy a 1.5 megawatt, and that would about run our streetlights. Except you got a $2.5 million investment, and you'd have to know how long the wind was going to blow and what it cost you to maintain it, and is there room in the city for it? So the answer to the manufacturing thing, I don't think you're going to see it come back unless there's some major changes.
Mark Aldash?
We need to go after small business.
Can we be a manufacturing center again? Is it realistic?
Yes and no. Manufacture, as Ron stated, by the wayside nationwide, we're becoming more of a retail service industry-based country. So it's feasible, yes. You have to offer incentives. Look, any job's a good job as long as it's paying and people are employed and they're making decent money. Whether it be manufacturing, whether it be, working at Walmart, whatever. I think that you have to offer incentives for companies to want to come here regardless of the company. As far as the wind power, the figures I had were less than what Ron had. Not sure, I had around $1 million, but wind power is very feasible. The rivers here, maybe the day has come and gone, but under somebody else's watch, they let it go. Whose watch was that? I don't know. But the hydroelectric power, is it feasible to build another dam? Yeah, it could be feasible, very feasible. And that's going to drive businesses to want to look to come here, like in Solvay or the city of Sherrill, So as far as, manufacturing or anything else, any job's a good job as far as I'm concerned, if people are working.
Okay, right. Next lightning round question. We're going at the speed of light here, aren't we? The sidewalks and many roads in the city of Fulton are in terrible condition and in need of urgent repair. I, says the writer, have approached the alderman about this issue, but no action's been taken in the district where I reside. I was told there's no money in the city's budget for the repairs. If you are elected mayor, what action will you take and what priority does this issue have in your agenda and proposed budget? Mark Aldash.
Right in my plan, I talk about infrastructure, roads, transportation. With business as anything else, transportation's the name of the game. I was told the same thing by my alderman. There's not much money in the city's budget, and I live on 4th Street, same street as the hospital. This winter there was a huge pothole. I could drive my Suburban in it and park it there, and you still probably wouldn't see it. That's an exaggeration, but, the fact of the matter is they're in disrepair, and it is a priority. If you want businesses to come in here and do business, okay, you got to have roads for the trucks to drive on. You got to have places for people to walk. My kids go to school. I talked to some people at some of the other schools when I've been out knocking on doors doing my petition drive. Their kids have to walk in the road because there's no sidewalks down certain roads.
What priority? Your question is what priority?
That's a high
First priority, second priority, third?
It's a high priority.
High priority.
The position where it sits, I'm not, whether it be 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, it's up there. Infrastructure is a very high priority.
Mark Sherman.
Yeah, I agree. I am running too as far as improvements to infrastructure. I was told the same thing when I was alderman, with no money in the budget, and I had to pass that on to somebody else, and nobody wants to hear that. So we do need to find money in the budget to do that. And that's one of the areas, and I know that this administration has bonded for that, and I'm not against that. It is called infrastructure improvement. I do support them on that, and I would definitely look towards doing the same. Obviously our bonding, you've got to hold that to a limit as well. You don't want to incur too much debt. That could put us in trouble as far as something. But it is infrastructure improvement, and I am definitely in favor of it.
Ron?
Yeah, we're always going to criticize because, and when I say we, I mean any administration that's here because we don't do enough. But when I look at the infrastructure, sidewalks especially, right up until a few years ago, if you wanted the sidewalk replaced in front of your house, you had to pay for half of it. The plain simple fact of the matter is when people had to pay for half of it, they didn't pay for any of it and it didn't get done. We took the bull by the horns and said, look, if you improve the housing stock in the city and then you look at the sidewalks and the people are tripping on them and it's bad, when you put a new sidewalk, a block of new sidewalk in a neighborhood, it improves the neighborhood. It's an investment in this community. We're doing more than we ever did. We budget $50,000 a year. We bond for it sometimes, and sometimes we can use CHIPS money. And we also have asked the Community Development Agency to target money for infrastructure improvement when they do business projects. When we did the new housing in the 6th Ward, they paid the material costs for all the sidewalks on Oneida Street from 7th Street to the city line on both sides. That's a big chunk of money. We're getting more sidewalks done now than has ever been done in this city in any administration. And water lines. Roads, that's probably you're going to have to focus to do some bonding. We are going to do some infrastructure improvement in the Cuba Street corridor this year, but it's targeting one area. And we need West 4th Street, East 4th Street. They need to be rehabbed, dug out, have a base put in, like we did on West 5th Street 20 years ago. I was mayor when we did it. We haven't paved it since. These streets we're paving every year because we're not putting the money in them to do the drainage and stuff.
Yes or no only. Will you lower taxes your first year in office? Mark Aldash.
Yes.
Mark Sherman.
No.
Ron Wilson. Straight answer. Code enforcement. See, now that's a lightning round question right there.
You didn't ask Ron.
What's that?
You didn't ask Ron.
He said no.
I didn't hear you.
He said no. He said no. You see, the problem is it went by so fast, you missed it. Code enforcement. Should it be done by complaint? Should it be complaint-driven, or should we be, and this is the writer's words, fair and write up anybody, especially city officials? Ron, let's see, who's a city official here tonight? Ron?
Yeah. I think they're referring to the fact that I haven't gotten around to getting my house started yet. And that's fine. It's a fair question. I live in the 6th Ward, and I had my priorities. And in spite of what people are thinking, I haven't got the siding on yet because I tried to keep my taxes down.
But you know what, Ron,
Well, at least he's honest.
There you go. Now, I thought the end of that was just funny, but the bottom line is, the end of the question, that is, not your answer. Should it be complaint-driven, or should it be, anybody can be written up?
Well,
The implication of the question is that people are not written up now.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of people aren't written up. But if you let me, and I know you want a quick response, but code enforcement's a very complex subject. Our code enforcement, including me, are involved in things like, we've had 6 fires in the city this year. We are deeply involved in all of them. In fact, one of them will be going to court pretty soon because now we gotta make them clean the mess up. We had a $650,000 investment in the brick house in the last couple of years, and we spent probably 200 hours of code enforcement through permit processes, inspections. We're going through the same thing with Kinney's now. We had Valvoline come in last year. There was things involved with that. Anytime there's expansions, it covers building permits. The problem with Fulton is, right now, with code enforcement, and I hate to keep harping on it, we're taking the resources we need to bring development to our city, and we're concentrating on people's investments that don't want to take care of them. We are being property managers for people that don't live here and take more out than what they give. And it should not be just complaint-driven. It should be proactive, but we're doing stuff besides telling people to pick their garbage up. We're doing stuff that's growing the city of Fulton.
And before we move on, I just want to tell you that we agreed ahead of time not to get into personal attacks here.
Right.
I thought that question was just funny, and I'd forgotten all about the whole citing thing. So I apologize for bringing that up.
Yeah, but let me say one thing. When Nestle's closed in 2003, I took a substantial amount of money from my retirement because I didn't make the 55 magic number, and I lost $90,000 in my retirement. We rehabbed the whole inside of my house, brand new housing plant. We put brand new windows in, brand new doors, brand new roof. My house is 135 years old.
Is the city assessor here? Listen to that.
And no, she knows. I got building permits for all of it. When we did that, a lot of the window sizes changed, and we tried to make it energy efficient. I'm not getting any younger. I'm trying to make it so I can live a little better. I had no idea what my employment opportunities were going to be. I mean, being in my late 50s, who knows who wants to hire an old guy, you know what I mean? And when I got all done, I thought that all the bases were covered tax-wise, and IRS hit me with a $34,000 bill, which I'm paying monthly now, and I fell short on the siding. I do have a son that's in the contractor business. We're going to get the house sided, and maybe we can come around and find an issue that's more important than Ron Woodward's house getting sided.
And again, my apology. Mark, complaint-driven code enforcement.
Well, I think I've already addressed this, but I am disappointed that nobody's asked a question about neighborhood safety issues here. And I would like to address that as far as codes, because that would be a legislative, you got to have a legislative committee, and the legislative committee is the one that's going to be writing and addressing codes issues as well as other neighborhood issues. And one of the things I'd like to see is a community awareness. Other communities, other cities, municipalities do this, and that with sex offenders. The neighbors are notified when a sex offender is moved into a neighborhood by mail. It's one thing that Fulton is not doing, and I know I've heard this when I've campaigned, that people would like to have some sort of notification. The only way for them to be notified right now is to go online and look up your sex offender registration lists, and even those aren't completely up to date. I would like to have set up a new legislative committee to address some of these concerns with code enforcement and other community-based safety issues as well. So I'm just taking the opportunity, because I've already pretty much addressed the question.
Should code enforcement be complaint-driven, Mark?
No. Code enforcement should take a proactive approach. They need more active involvement. And as far as city employee or whatever, the other part of the question, nobody's above the law, okay? And you lead by example. you know, if Ron's a code enforcement officer, his house isn't up to code, lead by example. That's all I'm going to say to that. It's nothing, you know, but it's a proactive approach, absolutely. Because by the time it's complaint-driven, it's already too late. It's not really too late, but in the same sense it is, because now you've disrupted the harmony of the neighborhood. They should take a proactive, they should be out driving, looking at houses, you know, seeing what needs to be done.
All right. Well, we've gone 30 minutes over time. There's still a stack of questions, and we're going to leave it where it is, unfortunately. We're going to wrap this up, and what we're going to do now is give each of these gentlemen one last opportunity to state their case for themselves one more time and say anything that they may have left unsaid so far. And we'll start on this side. We started on the far side to begin. On my near side, Ron Woodward.
Okay. Well, I'll reiterate what I said the first time. I'm a Fultonian. I was born here, raised here, raised my family here. I love the city of Fulton. I love the people. I think I'm good for the city. I don't think that there's too many people that know more about the city than I do. And when I was alderman the first 4 years of my political career, I lived at City Hall when I wasn't working, so I could understand the workings of it. I was on the Zoning Board of Appeals. I was on the Planning Commission. I was on the Recreation Commission. I was on the Streetlight Committee. I asked questions. I was on the Budget Committees. I knew back then what bond anticipation notes were and permanent financing was. I understood the inner workings. I learned all I could about water and sewer, not just the rates. And you know, when you compare municipal government or elected officials to private industry, that's fair. If you took a $14 million corporation that was private industry and a person was running it or helping to run it, because no one person runs it, it's a joint effort, you would sit in a boardroom and say, you know, that guy's been here a long time, doing a pretty good job, but maybe we ought to throw a bum out and get the guy off the street and see if he wants to run it for a while. You wouldn't do that. But in government, that happens, and I understand why. Because everybody, we have the 50-foot rule. When we get hurt, we have a tendency to say, well, change it, okay? I think I can do a good job for the city of Fulton. I'd understand it if I didn't win. I know the ramifications of being around a long time. But I think I'm good for Fulton. And as far as our... and I will say, as far as the fat at City Hall, I don't believe any exists. Are there people at City Hall that don't work as hard as other people? You betcha. But I'll tell you right now, I came from Fulton too, and there were people there that didn't work as hard as some others. And I came from Nestle's, and we had the ones up here, and we had the ones down here. That's human nature. We have a dedicated staff. Our people are professional. In spite of the jealousies and some of the things that you see and you hear on the street, most of it's because they don't know, some of them are underpaid. And that's all I'll say. I'd like to be your mayor. Give me your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Mark Sherman?
Yeah, if elected, you can guarantee it won't be business as usual at City Hall. We are going to make changes across the board. We're going to make changes to the community. We want to make positive changes. I'm not looking out to go out and make changes that are going to hurt this community. I want this community to be the best it can be. It's not going to change overnight. It's taken several years, actually decades, to get to where we are right now. We are a city in decline. I get outside the community. I see other communities. I come back here and I realize that we are in decline. We need to change that. We need new ideas, new vision, new goals, new plans. We need to rebuild this community. And I believe I've got the experience, the knowledge to do that. And I would appreciate your support and consideration this primary season and in November. Thank you.
Mark Sherman. And Mark Aldash now.
Well, Look, I'm not afraid to say what needs to be said and do what needs to be done. I'm not part of the good old boy system. They've had their opportunity to bring about change. I've put together a plan. I put it out on paper, what I'd like to do to help the city, to bring in businesses, to improve this city. I do have ideas. That I put it right in black and white, or red, white, and black, whatever, on those papers. Look, you know, Einstein said the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So if you keep electing the same people into office, why would you expect anything to change? You know, and that's what I'm about. Look, I'm the new blood that this city needs, in my opinion. I believe I have very good ideas that can help this city move into a positive, solid direction with a strong economy and a strong future. And, you know, I'm not afraid to do what needs to be done, and you know, that's, you know, my word is my bond, and, you know, that's why I'm running, is to try and make a difference. I could sit home and complain. That does absolutely nothing. I decided to throw my hat in the ring. So if anything else, even if I lose, you know, maybe they'll take my ideas and run with them, you know, what they think are the better ideas, and to help benefit this community. That's why I'm running, is to help this community. Thank you.
And a hand for Mark Aldash. One little piece of business left to do. This debate takes place on the anniversary of a horrible event. And we might have paused at the beginning, but we didn't. Put that down to the nervousness of your presenter. But we're going to now, if we would, take a moment of silence for those who died on September 11th. And it should be noted that what the terrorists tried to kill is the very thing we saw here tonight, democracy. How about one more hand for our candidates, please? And a little thanks for our journalists over here. You got to hear the voices behind the faces, right? They hate the fact there were microphones there. Thank you all. See you on primary night. Good night.